You're afraid to leave the narcissist, and that's perfectly understandable. Here are 7 reasons you may be afraid to leave, but what if I could tell you that maybe they're not as bad as you fear they're going to be in the future? So let's look at some of those things. You've finally come to the conclusion after all this time that you're going to have to leave the narcissist. Maybe it's because you saw another inappropriate text message. Maybe it's because they said something cruel to your child, or maybe they just flat out told you, I'm never going to change. And whatever the reason is, you can now see the verbal, mental, and emotional abuse for what it is. You can't unsee it once you see it. You know you need to leave, but you have these fears. What if these terrible things happen and like you can't get by on your own? Or what if you leave and you blow up your whole life and then you regret it? Those are all perfectly valid fears. But the reason that you have these fears in the first place could be, or most likely are, because of the narcissist. They spend years telling you that you need them, that you're not okay without them, that you can't handle things on your own. What the narcissist does is he reinforces his message by stripping away your confidence and then building you back up with love bombing and hoovering, so that, you know, one minute you're totally ready to leave, you've made the decision, and the next minute you're begging this person to stay. Okay, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are some of the fears that most people worry about. Most of the clients that I've talked to, the fears that I have myself. And number 1 is you fear you will have difficulty with finances. And this is a huge one, especially with today's economy. Everybody's struggling. I won't try to convince you that things will be easy once you leave, because, you know, you're cutting out a huge salary that's part of, you know, your finances, part of how you get by. And that's assuming that they are working, which isn't always the case. But, you know, you may not have control over money already. So you're fearing that you're going to have less money, but like you're probably already having to ask permission. You probably don't have any control over what you purchase or how you use money. And what if in the future you have more energy to make more money and you can make a better life for yourself without this person? I know for me, I was never sleeping and the stress levels were building up, so that I kept cutting down my hours at work because I was tired all the time. I was exhausted. And, you know, after I left, it was easier for me to have the energy to work towards the goals, you know, to achieve my own personal dreams. So, you know, just because you're looking at a divorce situation doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be worse off financially. You might be better off financially. And then number 2, this is another big one. You worry how your kids are going to cope. You worry because you feel like being with the narcissist, you can protect your kids from the behavior of this toxic person. But what if you think of these 2 things? What will it be like for your child to live in a home that is 100% peaceful for 50% of the time? Because right now, they're living in a home that's not peaceful ever. It's not peaceful for any percentage of time. So imagine if they had a week where they could go be with you and just totally relax. So depending on the situation, most people get 50-50 custody. It's not always the case. That hasn't happened for me. I know are some other people with circumstances that they didn't have to give their partner 50%. So, think about, like, are there some substance abuse issues? Are there physical abuse issues that possibly could help you get more custody of your children? And, a lot of times people give 50-50 custody to their partner in divorce, and then something happens afterwards where they have to, that narcissistic person has to give up their custody. So just some things to keep in mind. You probably, in most cases, will end up with 50-50 custody, but like I said, your child can have peace for some of the time. The other thing I want you to consider is that right now, your children do not know the authentic you. What they know is the you that is afraid all the time, the you that is dulling their emotions because it's so stressful that you can't be yourself. You can't love your children in the way that you would if you were happy and peaceful. So I remember a story with my own kids. It was right after my divorce, my second divorce, and I went to my daughter's house. Most of my kids are adults. My youngest is a teenager. But I went to my daughter's house and I was there with all of my kids, and they were just joking around and making me laugh. I laughed so hard at a joke that they told that I was actually wheezing, and my kids were just amazed by that. They had never seen me that happy, that they could remember, because before I had married my second husband, they were all really young, and plus I was going through stressful times then too. So I don't know if they've ever seen the real me. So they're starting to see that side of me, and they're really surprised about how different I am. Number 3, you fear losing your home. Now, this one's really hard. This was hard for me. I was able to keep my home in both situations. The first time, my first husband, he was so anxious to get out of the marriage that he left the home. And the second time, I had already owned the home before I remarried, and so I was able to keep the home. That's not the case for a lot of my clients. A lot of times they have to move out of their home that they adore. They have to go to an apartment, or maybe they go live with somebody else for a little while. But the thing about it is, like I was talking about before, their finances are able to grow at a faster rate when they have less stress, so that they're able to get a home on their own a little bit quicker than they would have if they were, still dealing with the stress from the narcissist. And sometimes they're just so peaceful in their new apartment or tiny home that they feel so much happier than they did in their big, beautiful home that they shared with the narcissist. So just another thing to keep in mind, even if you do have to move, it may be completely worth it because it will be peaceful. Number 4, you don't want to lose friends and family. And the honest truth is that you probably will lose some friends and family. You will lose the narcissist family, and you may be really close to some of those family members, but I figure that's their family that they've had their entire life, so they deserve to at least be with their family. And in the case of my first husband, I was able to rebuild a relationship with them after the divorce, after a little bit of time had passed. Not that they were we didn't struggle, it was just that there was a separation just because of the nature of divorce. I did lose some friends because they took his side. most of the friends stayed on my side, luckily. But with my second marriage, I lost some friends there too. And the thing about that is the people who really love and care about you are going to keep supporting you. And I found that some of the friends that I had were telling me that they could see the characteristics of this narcissistic person the whole time, and they only stayed in the relationship because they cared about me so much. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I know everybody's situation is different. You may be living in a town where you don't know anybody except the people that you're friends with the narcissist. But there are ways to go out and find other groups and get the support you need. And number 5, you worry that your partner will be better off than you. This was a big one for me because my first husband made a lot of money in sales, and he ended up having a relationship with another girl that also made a lot of money. And I just thought, here I am struggling with 3 kids, and he's just gonna go off and have this amazing life with a ton of money. I was a teacher, so teachers don't make that much money. And I was so upset about that. But, I had a counselor at the time, and he told me, look, you are the one that's doing the healing. You are the one that's more stable. Chances are you're going to go on and have a happier life, and he's going to struggle. And while I did go on and marry somebody else that was toxic, I think in the end, I am a happier person than either of my exes because neither one of them has done the work. So you're going to do the work because you're following me. Okay, number 6, you think you don't have the energy to go through the stress of leaving. And this is another big one for a lot of my clients. It was big for me too, like just the thought of, separating your whole life, separating your friends, separating your belongings, separating your home, separating your finances. It was really overwhelming. And what I did, and what I tell my clients to do, is start working on self-care now. You can be meditating, you can be going for walks in nature, you can be doing things that bring you joy and bring you peace so that you have a little bit more energy. And yes, it's going to be stressful no matter what you do, but just keep looking at the bigger picture. On the other side of all that stress is, peace, happiness, joy. It's going to be so much better once you get away from this toxic situation that you're living in. And I had an analogy. It's kind of like, saying, I don't have the energy to leave this burning building because the smoke is making it hard to breathe. Well, you would find a way to get out of the burning building, right? You need to find a way to get the energy that you need to leave this toxic relationship. And you're going to do that by finding support. And you can find support through my group coaching program. You can find support through 12-step groups in your area, church, other women's groups. You can find Facebook groups. There's all kinds of ways that you can find the support that you need that will give you that extra energy and boost to get out of this relationship. Number 7, you're afraid of the post-separation abuse. And I did not have this so terrible, but I do know people that did really struggle with this. And if you look at some of the cases in the news, there are people that struggle with this. You know your situation best, so make sure you have a plan and you get support. That's how you're gonna get around the post-separation abuse. You might still have it, but if you have a plan and you have the support, then it won't be as bad as you think it's going to be. And whatever you do, do not give the narcissist a heads up that you're leaving until you have your plan in place. Talk to an attorney. You can go to a women's shelter if you need to. You can look into getting a restraining order if you need to. Take care of yourself. Make sure you have that plan in place. Who are your supports that are going to be there for you? Your friends, your family that are 100% on your side. Have all that in place before you even think about leaving. And then, like I said before, I've had the same fears as you. I've been divorced twice. But luckily, after each divorce, things seemed to work out in my favor. And I had hard times, but they weren't as bad as I feared because I was resilient and I had a lot of supportive, loving people around me to help me through it. And each divorce had different circumstances. The opportunities for work weren't the same. When I had my first divorce, I had to go back to teaching, which was fine because I was blessed to have that job. I loved it, and I had time off with my children. The money wasn't great as a teacher, but luckily the child support situation worked out and everything was great. The second time around, my kids were older, and so I didn't have to worry so much about the, shared custody and everything. But when my hurting heart healed, each time I realized what I had been putting up with for so long, way longer than I should have. And the one thing that I will leave you with is I wish I had done the healing work before I met my second husband. If I had done that, which I thought I was doing because I was going to counseling, but I really didn't give myself time to work on my own personal values, my own personal boundaries. I didn't work on loving myself and building up my own confidence. If I had done those things, my life would have gone a much different way. But, I have to be thankful for what I have, because now I have this coaching practice where I'm able to help other people that have been in the situation that I was in, and that brings me lots of joy and purpose. So there's always a glimmer of hope somewhere in there, something that you can be happy about, a lesson that you've learned, and just you improve your life so much. So what I would love to know in the comments, did I leave off a fear that you have about leaving your partner? And if I did, put it in the comments and I will come back and I will answer your questions and tell you, what has happened in my particular case and the case of my clients, and hopefully why that fear was a little bit unfounded. Not always unfounded, but not as bad as you thought it was going to be. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.